Hi, my name's Satwan, and welcome to this video where I wanted to share how I used two apps to write the second edition of my book called Money Down Under, as you can see on screen. And this book is a personal finance guide for people who are permanently moving to Australia. I thought you might find it helpful whether you've been writing books for a while or if you're new to writing books. I think it might help both sets of people to improve how quickly you get things out and write a book more efficiently. I originally wrote the book in 2019 using Scrivener and Microsoft Word on my Windows laptop, and I originally only released it on Kindle. There was no print edition because I was just testing the waters to see if anybody would be interested in the topic. So I want to start by saying I never really enjoyed the experience of using Scrivener. So if I pull it up on screen now, I found that the user interface of Scrivener was very dated and clunky and old. I know it's powerful, you can see lots of functions and areas where you can write different things, but I just don't like, for example, on this top right hand corner here, this kind of note card style and old style fonts. I just don't like the user interface of it. And I found this all to be very distracting when I tried to focus on writing, but I persisted with it because I just simply needed an alternative to scrolling up and down the page in Microsoft Word while I was creating my first draft. I did experiment with Microsoft OneNote Desktop Edition for the first chapter, but that came with its own sort of clunky interface and weird boundary boxes which get annoying when you're cutting and pasting paragraphs into different places. When I finally finished the book in Scrivener, I then copied and pasted each section into Microsoft Word to do the final formatting in preparation to upload the file to the Amazon Kindle Create desktop app. So let's fast forward back to 2021, and I recently updated the book and released the second edition, as you can see on screen here. It's now available in Kindle and as a print book, and it includes a lot more extra information based on the feedback I got from readers in the first edition. So before I started writing, I spent a few days thinking about what applications I was going to use for the different stages of the project. The first decision was what application to use for research and collecting articles and subjects that I wanted to include in the new edition. The second decision was what application to use to structure the outline of the book, such as the main chapters and the main sections within them. And thirdly, the decision was what app was I going to use to write each chapter. So I'm going to explain what I used for each section and why. Let's start with the application that I used for research. I needed somewhere that I could dump everything that I wanted to write about so I could later organize it. And secondly, I needed a tool to quickly copy the URLs for the articles as well as the article heading. So as you can see on screen now, I used Microsoft Word as the main dumping ground. And I used a Chrome extension called Tab Copy, which saved me a ton of time and effort. So let me show you what I did. Let me start by pulling up an article. So here's one here. And I installed an extension in Chrome called Tab Copy. So here it is on the right hand side. If I click it, one of the options is to copy the selected tab. So I'll copy that, and you can see the article here at the top, and it's called The Global Chip Shortage, blah, blah, blah. So I go to Microsoft Word, to the document, I just Control V it there, hit space to turn that into a link. So as you can see, it's got the article name, the source, and the actual link. So this is much faster than copying the heading and then pasting it, and then copying the link and pasting it. The Tab Copy extension just does everything for me. And then as you can see what I've done at the top, as I've finished writing about each topic, I just strike it through and I make it grey so that it doesn't distract me and I can just carry on writing. So as you can see, I organized everything by chapter. The next application I needed was to help me organize the outline of the book in terms of the chapters and the sections within them. I'm a very visual person, so I needed something that would allow me to see the whole book in a diagrammatic way instead of in a linear way, which Microsoft Word does. I needed to be able to use symbols and colors and sort of as much extra sort of visual stuff that I could get. Now, mind mapping is something that I have used on and off over the years, but I've never quite found the right tool. I've used Xmine Desktop, as you can see here, but it's not a very fluid user experience. A few years ago, I tried MindMeister, but the problem with MindMeister was that it didn't have a high enough display density to show enough information on the screen at once. I found that this limitation made it just as bad as using a tool that displays things linearly like Microsoft Word does. So I thought I would have another look to see what was new in the mind mapping market. I remembered seeing an advert for Whimsical. It ended up being the perfect solution for this project. Let me show you how I used it. First of all, here is my entire book in Whimsical. There are 13 sections in total. Let me explain how I use the app. The first problem that Whimsical solved for me is quickly being able to change the density of information. This is something that MindMeister was never good at. So if I hit the control button now and move my mouse scroll wheel, you can now see that I can zoom straight into chapter 2, which is about banks in Australia. Now I'll hold the space bar and move the actual map so I can get to the top. And here you can see how I've written about the different aspects of Australian banking as an example. Whimsical automatically chooses the colors for each branch, which again is fantastic for me because I'm so visual. Let me show you how that works. So if I just create a new one there, test, and then test 2, and then test 3. So as you can see, it just automatically creates all the different colored branches, which is fantastic. Now I'm going to move to chapter 8, which is about retirement. I'll hit control and zoom in again. This was a very detailed section, and to ensure that I didn't miss anything, I actually inserted a tick for every part of the chapter once I had written it. I'll create a new branch now to show you how it works. So I'll hit tab, just type test, type in tick, so there's that one there. The only downside of this is that in future, if I want to refresh the book, it's quite time consuming to untick everything. You can use a keyboard shortcut, but it's still time consuming. I'll worry about that in a few years when I have to do another edition of the book. There are two things that I would like to see improved. Firstly, these bubbles for the comments, they're quite big and can hide stuff in the back. If you zoom out, it then covers the branches. So I think they need to improve that or make it dynamic. And secondly, if I add a link, so if I go here and add a hyperlink, for example, when that link actually comes through like this, if I zoom out, it's a bit close to the bubble. So these are just minor things that I can think could be fixed quite easily by the team. But overall, Whimsical was absolutely amazing for helping me to write the book much faster than I did the first time around. It's an absolutely amazing tool, and you can sign up for free and start using it straight away. Now the big one, let's show you Dropbox Paper. And now I'm going to explain why I used it to write the book. Firstly, I love how Dropbox Paper is so minimal and clean. As I said earlier, and I showed you earlier, Scrivener, I'll pull it up again, it has a horrible, clunky user interface, and it really affected my ability to focus. So let me start by showing you what a blank Dropbox Paper page looks like. Just create a new doc. There you go. Absolutely clean, no distractions, you can just start writing. And I used it by getting each branch from my Whimsical mind map and writing each chapter. It was an absolutely smooth, slick experience in terms of being a writer. Now I'm going to open one of the chapters, and I'll show you two features that I absolutely love. The first one is the overall chapter index on the left-hand side. Now you can't see it now, but if I click this icon here at the top, these are all the chapters. So that's chapter 4, chapter 5, and once you've finished using it, you can click the button to get rid of it again. So that's fantastic. Now, this second feature is the one that absolutely sealed the deal for me and to decide to use Dropbox Paper. And this is the feature where if I hover over the left-hand side, all these headings or subheadings within the chapter pop up. And if I move my mouse away, they disappear. This is fantastic. And the other thing is really smart is the different lengths of these lines on the left indicate how big each subsection is as well. This is absolutely fantastic user interface designed by the team at Dropbox. Now, a quick tip for you. If you want to keep your chapters organized, like you can see here, computers don't really understand chapters, so to make sure that everything always displays in the correct order, you must use numbers at the beginning of each chapter name. So you can see 003 here. Always use 3 numbers, and that way you'll never have an issue. And this just applies in general to folders and files in Windows Explorer or any other operating system. Now, the third thing I liked about using web applications in general to write, if I just minimize this so you can see it, I had all my chapters open across the top, and then I had the appendix open as well for cross-referencing. Using the full real estate of my widescreen monitor in this way also made writing the book much faster instead of having to scroll up and down in Word. Once you have finished writing a chapter, you can download it as a Microsoft Word file by following these steps. On the top right-hand corner, you'll see these 3 dots. Click that, and then scroll down to Export. I wish they'd call it Download because it took me a while to figure this out. So click Export, and then you can choose Microsoft Word, but you have the option of Markdown or PDF export as well. I found 2 disadvantages of using Dropbox Paper. The first one is that the grammar checker is non-existent. After I had exported all of my chapters as Word documents, Word found lots of mistakes I had made, such as when I had duplicated words, missed out words, or if I had made punctuation errors. The second disadvantage is that you have to merge all of the Microsoft Word files together if you create a book the way that I did. You obviously don't have to create separate paper files for each chapter. I simply chose to do it this way so that I could make full use of the width of my monitor by having each chapter open in its own browser tab. It really all depends on how your brain works, which will determine what software you decide to use, of course. So to conclude this video, I would definitely say that both Whimsical and Dropbox Paper helped me to create the second edition of my book much faster than last time, and I actually enjoyed the writing experience for the second edition much more than the first time around, because both of these applications are extremely well designed with their modern and responsive interfaces. They're simply a pleasure to use because of their minimalist design, which lets you focus on the task, whether it's planning or writing. I would definitely use Whimsical again in future. That's because in my mind, it was the crown jewel in this project. Whimsical made it so easy to plan each section of the book that when it came to writing each chapter, I felt as though the team at Whimsical were doing all the hard work instead of me. I felt like I was simply observing, like a co-pilot on an aircraft, just to make sure that they weren't doing anything wrong, which may sound weird, but that's the best way I can describe it. I already use Whimsical to plan major projects anyway, so using it to write books in future is a no-brainer for me. When it comes to Dropbox Paper, there's no question that it's a fantastic writing tool, but I found the lack of a grammar checker is a bit of a downside. I felt that I spent a bit too much time fixing the issues before I could even start my first read-through to fix major mistakes and paragraphs or sections that I decided to change. So if you're about to write a book, I'd love to hear your experiences and thoughts and feedback below in the comments. And if you happen to be moving to Australia, please feel free to buy the book. Thanks.